Chapter 44, A Quiet Kind of Forever. Time skip, Baxter Building. Madison and Johnny arrived back home after spending a week at Italy. "Johnny, I still can't believe you proposed. It feels unreal," Madison says as she looks at the ring. Johnny smiles. "Well, you changed me, and I wanted to show it." Madison looks over to him. "You still do by showing up for me when I'm sad, having a panic attack, and more." Johnny's arms wrapped around her without hesitation, pulling her fully against him. "I'll always show up," he said into her hair, "even on the days I mess up, especially on those." Madison smiled, tears slipping free now. "I don't need perfect," she whispered, "just you." Johnny pulled back just enough to look at her, brushing a tear away with his thumb. "Good," he said softly, "because you've got me for the rest of your life." She laughed through her tears and kissed him slow, certain and real. Time skip, next morning. After Madison got the rings insured, she sat at the table, tapping the back of the pen on the paper as she's thinking about the budget of the wedding and who's going to be on the guest list and where the venue is going to be. Madison sighs to herself as she puts down her pen and holds her head, struggling. Susan walks into living room and she sees Madison holding her head. "Rosebud, are you okay?" Susan asks as she walks over to her and sits down at the other side of the table. Madison moves her hand to look at Susan and shakes her head. "No, I'm mostly struggling on a budget. I don't want to go over the top, but I feel like Johnny would want that." Susan looks at her for a moment, then to the papers of the numbers, the names, and the empty venue page. "Talk me through it," she said calmly. Madison breathes in and out to calm her stress, as she's grateful for the invitation. "I don't want a massive guest list," she continued, "just family, close friends, people who actually know us." Her finger tapped the paper again. "But then I think about venues, and suddenly everything doubles in price. And then catering goes up, and then..." She stopped herself, letting out a frustrated breath. Susan nods slowly, absorbing it. "And what do you want?" she asked. Madison hesitated. "I want something meaningful, not extravagant, somewhere that feels us, but I don't know how to balance that with what people expect, or what Johnny used to expect." Susan leaned back slightly, folding her hands together. "Johnny isn't the same man he used to be, and I think you know that." Madison looks at her. "He proposed because he loves you," Susan continued. "Not because he wants a spectacle. The wedding doesn't have to be loud to be important." Madison nods slowly, absorbing every word. "I know. I just don't want to mess this up." Susan reached across the table and rested her hand over Madison's. "You won't. You're thinking about budgets, guest lists, and venues because you care. That already tells me you're doing it right." Madison gave a small, tired smile. "Okay," Susan added, a hint of warmth in her voice now. "Let's start simple. Budget first, then guest list, then venue. One thing at a time." Madison squeezed her hand gratefully. "One thing at a time." Madison hesitated for a moment before she looked at Susan again. "Subug," Madison slowly starts, and Susan looks at her as Madison continues. "Would you like to be my bridesmaid?" Susan looks at her shocked at first, then she slowly smiles. "Of course I will." Time skip, October 20th. After everything is set up, the venue, the guest list, and the budget, Madison was ready. Madison stands next to Susan and Alicia as they talk as they sit in their seats. Of course, the makeup artist asks for Madison first. Susan starts to put on some music as they start to get ready. Johnny in another room, talking to Reed, his best man, and Ben as they also start to get ready. Herbie chirps up in excitement as Reed puts on the suit on him. After a while, everyone besides Madison got into their positions. Reed stayed with Madison as Madison asked him to walk her down the aisle. Unbeknownst to Madison, Johnny had asked Reed to make a video call through the X-Men universe so that Scott could watch his daughter finally getting married. The music starts, and Madison breathes in and out and she starts to walk. Johnny turns around and the world stops. Madison is walking down the aisle in white, but not blinding, overworked kind. The dress sits off her shoulders, soft and intentional, the fabric folding over itself like it was shaped by hands instead of seams. The bodice is smooth and structured, holding her with a quiet confidence that makes his chest tightened before his brain can catch up. The skirt moves like it has a heartbeat of its own. Satin gathers in her hands as she walks, blooming and collapsing in slow waves, rich and alive, like it doesn't want to leave her grip. It isn't delicate. It isn't fragile. It's commanding. Johnny forgets how to breathe, and for the first time in his life, Johnny doesn't have a joke. He can see blush pink with white peonies in her hands and Madison smiles. After Reed lets go of Madison near the altar, Madison walks onto it and stood beside Johnny. The officiant starts the ceremony. "Today," he began, "we are here to celebrate love." After the officiant has finished the first part, Madison and Johnny turn to face each other. "Johnny, you may begin," the officiant said gently. Johnny glanced down, before looking back at Madison. "Okay," he said quietly, "so I had a speech." A few guests chuckled, already emotional. "But the second you walked towards me," Johnny continued, "I forgot all of it." He took her hands, thumbs brushing over her knuckles like muscle memory. "I've been in space. I've seen worlds on fire, literally, and none of that scared me like loving you did. Because loving you meant something real, something that could actually break me." Madison's eyes filled instantly. "But instead," Johnny said, "you made me better, you made me patient. You made me brave in ways I didn't know I needed to be." He smiled, soft and sincere. "I promise to choose you every day, on the easy days, on the days when the world is loud and messy and dangerous." He squeezed her hands. "I promise to protect you, to listen when you need quiet, and to remind you who you are when you forget." His voice dropped just for her. "And I promise that no matter how many universes there are, I will always find you." Madison laughed through her tears again, and the officiant turned to her. "Madison." She inhaled, steady but emotional, her voice gentle yet unwavering after she exhaled. "Johnny, you came into my life like fire, loud, reckless, impossible to ignore." Johnny huffed a quiet laugh. "But you stayed," she continued, "even when things were complicated, even when loving me meant facing things bigger than either of us." Her fingers tightened around his. "You see me, all of me, not as something fragile or broken, but as someone worth standing beside." Her voice trembled. "You make me feel safe without ever making me feel small." She swallowed, blinking back tears. "I promise to walk with you through every storm, to believe in you when you doubt yourself, to remind you that your heart is just as powerful as your fire." Madison smiled, radiant. "And I promise that no matter where life takes us, no matter how many worlds try to pull us apart, I will always choose you." On a small screen in the front row with Reed, Scott stood frozen, eyes glassy, hand covering his mouth. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He simply pressed his fingers to the screen, pride and heartbreak and overwhelming love written all over his face. Madison looks over to the screen and nodded at him. "It's okay," it said. "I'm happy." Scott wiped his eyes, lips trembling into the softest smile. He knows if Jean was here watching, she would be emotional as well. The officiant cleared his throat, voice warm and certain. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." A pause and a smile. "Johnny, you may kiss your bride." Johnny didn't hesitate. He cupped Madison's face like she was sacred and leaned in slowly, giving her every second to feel it. The kiss wasn't rushed. It was warm, deep, and certain. Applause erupted around them, cheers and laughter blending into one overwhelming wave, but Johnny barely heard it. All he knew was the way Madison against his lips, the way her hands curled into his suit like she was anchoring herself there. When they finally pulled apart, Johnny rested his forehead against hers, laughing softly. "Hi, wife," he whispered. Madison smiled, bright, breathless, completely his. "Hi, husband." And somewhere, Across universes and stars, a father watched his daughter glow, knowing she had found her forever. Chapter 45, The Man I Have Become. Time skip reception. Everyone is at the reception. Susan walks over to Madison to talk to her. "Hey, how is my sister-in-law?" Susan teased. Madison laughs as she looks over to Susan. "I'm feeling great, actually. Everything was perfect." Susan smiles and hugs her. "I'm glad that it was. I told you that I could help." Madison hugs her back. "Thank you, Subug." They start to talk more to each other and laughing as both of them made a joke. Madison looks over to her side, and she sees the robot that Reed built for Scott rolling over to her. "May I have this dance?" Scott asks as the robot hand moves to hold out its hand for her. Madison smiles as she took it. "Of course, Dad." They walk to the dance floor, and they start to dance to "I'll Always Be My Daddy's Girl" by 1GN. Johnny watches from the sidelines, and he smiles at how beautiful Madison is, and at her father and daughter dance. Madison smiles as she looks at her father. "I'm sorry you couldn't be here physically." Scott looks at her. "Don't be. I may not be here physically, but I'll always be here." Scott moves the robot hand to touch the part of Madison's chest where her heart is. After a while, the music changes to "Perfect" by Ed Sheeran, and Madison looks over to Johnny as he walks over. Johnny looks at Madison with a smile before looking over to Scott. "May I cut in?" Scott looks over to Johnny and nods before moving off the dance floor. Johnny wraps his arms around Madison as she wraps her arms around his neck, and they both start to dance. Madison lays her head on his shoulders as they dance. Everything is perfect. Johnny smiles. "I'm glad that it is." Madison looks up to him and kisses him softly, and Johnny kisses her back. He does a little tease. "We have to cut the cake soon." She groans. "Don't remind me. I'm just focused on the dancing." Johnny chuckles at that as he continues to dance with her. After a while, Johnny and Madison walk over to the cake stand, and Madison grabs a knife to cut the cake. Johnny watches as he smiles, but it slowly fades as he thinks about his past self, how that version of him would have embarrassed her, but he shrugs his thoughts away. Madison looks over to him as she passes the knife over to him, and he takes it and cuts the cake to grab his portion, and they feed each other their cake as everyone smiles before grabbing their portion of the cake. As everyone sat down, eating, Johnny stood up and clinks his glass to get everyone's attention. Everyone looks over to him as he starts to speak. "I would like to thank everyone for coming, but I just want to say that when I first met Madison, I was a complete player and I hurt Madison in ways that I now regret, but after everything in that storm, I slowly became the man that Madison could rely on. The past me would have not dreamed of this, but now I'm glad that I married Madison, because she was the one who made me turn into the man you all love." Madison blushes under her drink of champagne as she smiles. After everyone did their toast, they all took pictures to remember it and went home after.